The distress beacon pinged on Jalen's scanner just as he was finishing his cargo run through the Valoran sector. Most freighter pilots would have ignored it. Distress calls in deep space were often pirate traps or bureaucratic nightmares waiting to happen. But Jalen had never been like most pilots. He adjusted course toward the signal's origin. A small asteroid cluster, drifting lazily through the void. His ship, the Wandering Star, wasn't built for rescue operations, but it would have to do. "Let's see what we've got," Jalen muttered, pulling up the scanner data. The readings were strange life signs, definitely, but small, very small. When he finally located the source, floating in a damaged emergency pod wedged between two asteroids, Jalen's breath caught. Through the viewport, he could see a creature no bigger than a human child. Covered in midnight blue fur, with 6 limbs and luminous golden eyes that were currently wide with terror. A Craxian cub. Jalen's hand hovered over the comm system. Craxians were apex predators. One of the most feared species in the galaxy. Adults stood 3 meters tall, possessed strength that could bend steel, and had reflexes that made them nearly impossible to fight. Their reputation alone kept most conflicts from escalating. Nobody wanted to anger a Craxian pack. But this wasn't an adult. This was a child. Alone and afraid. Jalen brought the pod aboard. The cub emerged slowly, cautiously. Its retractable claws extended in a defensive posture. It chittered softly, a sound that Jalen's translator struggled to interpret too young. The linguistic patterns not fully developed. "Hey there, little one," Jalen said softly, crouching down to appear less threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Jalen." The cub tilted its head, golden eyes studying him with an intelligence that seemed far beyond its size. Then it spoke. The words broken but understandable. "Kiro. Name. Kiro. Kiro," Jalen repeated with a gentle smile. "That's a good name. Can you tell me what happened?" Over the next hour, through a combination of broken galactic, common, and gestures, Jalen pieced together the story. Kiro's family had been traveling through the sector when their ship suffered a catastrophic failure. In the chaos, Kiro's emergency pod had been ejected, but it had malfunctioned, sending him drifting off course while the rest of his family's pods headed toward the nearest settlement. Kiro was lost, separated from his pack, in one of the most dangerous regions of space. Jalen checked his star charts. The nearest Craxian settlement was 3 days away, and the sector was crawling with raiders who would pay a fortune for a Craxian cub, either for ransom or worse. Every instinct told Jalen this was going to complicate his life in ways he couldn't imagine. He looked at Kiro, who was now examining the interior of his ship with cautious curiosity, and sighed. "All right, Kiro, let's get you home." The journey was unlike anything Jalen had expected. Kiro, despite being a member of a species known for their ferocity, was playful, curious, and surprisingly affectionate. He followed Jalen everywhere, asked endless questions about human culture, and seemed fascinated by the simplest things. Music, food preparation, the way Jalen's coffee maker hissed and sputtered. When Kiro had nightmares, crying out in the night for his parents, Jalen was there, sitting beside the small bunk he'd fashioned, humming old Earth lullabies until the cub's breathing steadied. On the 3rd day, they reached the Craxian settlement on Vareth Prime. The moment they entered orbit, Jalen's comm system exploded with incoming transmissions. Craxian voices, urgent and demanding, filled his cockpit. The landing pad was surrounded when he touched down. Dozens of Craxians, towering and intimidating, stood in a semicircle, but at the front stood 2 figures who moved differently with desperate, parental urgency. Kiro's parents. The reunion was overwhelming. Kiro launched himself from the ship, crying out in his native tongue, and was immediately swept up by his mother, who held him as if she'd never let go. His father, a massive Craxian whose scarred hide spoke of countless battles, approached Jalen with an expression that was difficult to read. Then he bowed a deep, formal gesture of respect. "You protected our child," the father said, his voice a low rumble. "You, a human, alone and vulnerable, chose to help when others would have seen only danger or profit. He was scared and lost. Jalen replied simply. What else would I do? The father's eyes glittered with something that might have been tears. You have given us the greatest gift in the universe. How can we repay you? R, R, you don't need to. We do. The father placed a massive hand on Jalen's shoulder with surprising gentleness. From this day forward, you are HFY, friend of the pack. You will never be alone in this galaxy. Jalen didn't understand the full weight of those words. Not then. But over the following months, he began to. Everywhere he traveled, Craxians recognized him. They offered assistance, protection, trade at preferential rates. When raiders tried to board his ship near the Helion Nebula, a Craxian patrol appeared seemingly from nowhere and drove them off. Then the messages started arriving. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Craxian families from across the galaxy, sending him formal documents, emergency contact authorizations. Every Craxian cub, it seemed, now listed Jalen of Earth, HFY, as their emergency contact. If they were ever lost, endangered, or separated from their packs, they were to seek him out. Jalen stared at his overflowing inbox in disbelief. This is insane. His comm chimed a video call from Kiro's family. The young cub appeared on screen, older now, his golden eyes bright with joy. Jalen, guess what? I'm starting navigation school. And I told all my friends about you, and they told their families. And, Kiro, Jalen interrupted gently. Do you know why every cub in the galaxy now has me listed as their emergency contact? Kiro's expression turned serious, almost solemn. Because you didn't have to help me. But you did. You proved that humans see children, even predator children, even our children, as worth protecting. The elders say that anyone who would risk everything for a lost child, regardless of species, is someone worthy of trust. Kiro's father appeared behind him. You showed us what humanity truly is, Jalen. Not through words or treaties, but through action. In a galaxy where many would have seen profit or threat in my son, you saw only a child who needed help. Jalen felt his throat tighten. I just did what anyone should do. Exactly, the father replied. And that is why you are HFY. The call ended, and Jalen sat alone in his cockpit, surrounded by thousands of messages from families across the stars, all trusting him with their most precious treasures. He smiled despite himself. Well, he muttered, pouring another cup of coffee. I guess I'm in the childcare business now. Outside his viewport, the galaxy stretched endlessly, and somewhere out there, thousands of cubs slept safely, knowing that if they ever got lost, a human named Jalen would come find them.